Brian.
Uncle B, if you're Brian Logan, welcome to BYU Sports Nation once again. Let's wrap up what we just witnessed here at the Orleans Arena between BYU and Gonzaga. 91-75, the Zags win another West Coast Conference Tournament championship. I just want to start off with this. It's almost as if some people forgot that they're the 7th-ranked team in the country. I know the disappointment is real, and BYU is like, well, we beat them up there, we can beat them again. They're the 7th-ranked team in the country for a reason.
Yeah, and some of the things that BYU did so well up in Spokane, they forgot about when they got down here. I was confident they could continue on doing what they've been doing. They've been defending really well, and they struggled to defend bigs inside. They didn't get enough big plays on the perimeter to get steals and get out in transition. And you think about it, BYU's not equipped to go and battle Gonzaga time after time down the floor in the half court. They're just too big, too physical inside. So BYU needs to get a portion of their points in transition. But when you get one steal in a ball game and you don't get down the court and get any fast break points, they had 2 fast break points in the entire game.
No bueno.
And so offensively, that hurt them. That took away easy buckets. So everything BYU got, and even though they didn't shoot a bad percentage, everything they got, they had to work and they had to fight tooth and nail for. And then they suffered on the defensive side. They just could not control the bigs inside. The officials in this game let them go inside. And that's not to BYU's advantage because this Gonzaga team inside is really strong and really physical. And BYU's fouls started to pile up. They started to get frustrated, and when they couldn't stop them. I mean, the bottom line is in the end, that was the problem. They didn't have enough defense. Their offense was not great. Mediocre for BYU, below average for BYU, but the defense just wasn't good enough to stop what Gonzaga did in the half court. They're a better half court team than BYU.
Yeah, and when you look at the points allowed, 91 tonight. You're going to lose when you give up 91, almost always. Then 87 in Provo. It was 70 in Spokane. Here's the good news for me. That's a second-round matchup in the NCAA tournament. That's the kind of game that you would play in the second round against Gonzaga. BYU can match up with those kind of teams if they play better post defense.
And they have to be exceptional, so they have to do something special. Defensively, the Zags are a great team. They shoot great all year long. This is a team that shoots almost 53% on the year, so for them to shoot 54 is not out of the ordinary. But to beat them, you have to play out of the ordinary defensively. You've got to hold them below their average. That's way better than they normally are from three-point. That's better than anybody is from that three-point line. And for BYU, they're just a little below their season average on field goals. So to beat a team that's in the top 10, you have to be exceptional. You have to play better than your averages, and you have to hold them below. They let Gonzaga, in terms of field goals, play at their average, and they were held below their averages. And so BYU's very capable when they shoot it great, when they play good defense on the perimeter and get out in transition and get transition threes and all those kinds of things to match up with a team like Gonzaga. They proved it last week up in Spokane. But they have to have a special day shooting the basketball to win against a team that good. Remember, that's a top 10 basketball team. I don't know what their seed's going to be.
They were a number 1 seed until BYU beat them in Spokane.
I have not forgotten this.
And I don't know why they're any worse than a 2 or a 3 right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know why they're not a 2 at worst. And so you got to remember that. You're right. That is like what they'd get in the second round of the tournament. This is a team that's good enough to advance in the tournament. They should be in the tournament based on their full body work, what they did up in Spokane. Kentucky would have been the only team in the country favored to win up there last week, and they went up and got a win. That helps them. This game, actually, even a loss helps their RPI because of strength of schedule component of RPI, so I would expect them to move up maybe 1 spot in terms of RPI. And so hopefully there's not crazy things that happen in the rest of the conference tournaments where teams that have no business being in the tournament get in and start taking spots, because that's the only risk BYU has at this point.
Yeah, and that's what BYU fans will be looking for this week is those Power 5 conference tournaments, particularly teams like Indiana and Texas A&M and LSU. Like, what are those teams going to do, and are they going to steal bids from teams like BYU that feel like we deserve to be in?
And mid-majors, you had Illinois State almost steal a bid on Sunday. Stuff like Northern Iowa wins that game and gets it. So it's going to be an anxious week.
It can happen. Hey, even the Mountain West that's going to be right here this week, UNLV is capable of getting hot and winning that tournament this week.
They're on their home floor.
And they have no business being in the tournament this year, but if something like that happens, then do Colorado State, Boise State, and San Diego State all still get in the tournament? They probably do. Maybe it bounces one out. So those are the kinds of things that BYU fans will be anxiously watching. I think they're far enough, and I think they're 5 or 6 or 7 in the tournament right now, so they'd have to have a catastrophe happen with a number of teams doing that.
Now, here's the thing for me. When you look at BYU, and we've talked a ton about star power. Kyle Collinsworth clearly brings that. Tyler Haws, one of the nation's leading scorers, clearly brings that. They're an exciting, fun brand of basketball to watch. We're hearing from a lot of experts, well, that doesn't really factor in, but I feel like it does, Blaine. Where do you stand on what teams bring eyes to television?
Well, they don't say, they don't say, hey, Tyler Haws is he's a star, but they do say, hey, look at the brand of basketball BYU plays. Look at how, they get up and down the floor. Look at what they score. They're one of the top scoring teams. They've been 1 or 2 all year long in scoring offense. And look at what they've done. I think that comes into play. I also, they take into account their last 10, how they finished the season. And so they've had a tremendous run here at the end of the year.
Won 9 of 11.
Yeah. And so they got a lot of things going for them going in. And they just have to, and they need to get into that tournament, and then they just have to have some of the third and fourth guys contribute more than they did tonight. Chase Fisher struggled tonight. Frank Bartley struggled when he got on the floor tonight. Corbin Kaufusi hardly played in the first half and struggled when he came back in, just wasn't in rhythm. And so they need more than just Kyle, and they need more than just Tyler. And, oh, by the way, Gonzaga does a better job of defending Tyler Haws than any team, not just in the WCC, but any team that he's played against.
Ever against him.
They have a great team concept, because what they do is they put Bell out there and they let him push right up on him, and then they force him into the big shot blockers. They've got so much length inside. It's just a tough matchup. But there are other guys open when that happens, and those guys have to come up big. And he had other guys come up big up in Spokane, and they just didn't tonight. Typically they do. They have in this last month of the season. They've come up big. So I don't have any question that they can do that come tournament time. They just need to make sure they get in. So it's a little bit anxious right now, but I think most people would agree that they should be comfortable enough inside of that tournament that even a couple of teams could have upsets and they could still be in.
25 wins for BYU and a top 40 RPI. The great win at Gonzaga. You had the bad wins with Pepperdine and San Diego. I feel confident that I feel really confident that BYU is going to get in. And then we've had 2 people tell us 10 or 11 seed at this tournament. Jeff Goodman, Sean Farnham, what they think. Ultimately, it's that 10-man room. And Tom Holmoe's on that committee. He has to step out of the room. But I think they validate BYU's resume and they get in.
Yeah, and you want to know what? It's funny because if they are somehow out, it's not because they wouldn't be a 10 or 11 seed. So a seeding, there's teams that have automatic bids that just won their conference tournament that are 16s and 15s, sure. And so BYU, it's not that they're not one of the best 68 teams in the country. That's not even a question. But there's so many automatic berths in that tournament that's what causes you the issue is that all of a sudden you're on the outside, even though you would be a 10 seed if you're in. If some of these really poor teams end up getting the tournament by winning their conference tournament.
The reason I bring up the eye test and the brand of basketball that BYU plays is because I feel if it comes down to BYU and one other team and there's only one spot for those 2 teams, it's going to be hard not to want to choose BYU.
Well, they'll look at RPI, they'll look at BPI, they'll look at statistics like scoring off. They'll look at all those things. And so
injuries.
BYU pops out, and they're going to be relatively healthy. Winder should be back for the tournament. They'll be healthy. It looks like Halford's injury, from what I'm hearing, is just like a contusion, maybe a nerve thing. And
okay, that's good news.
So he should be okay. They'll check it out when they get back home. But it wasn't a knee, it wasn't an ankle. It was a smack to the shin. So he should be okay. He's a big part of what they do. So they should be relatively healthy going in, as healthy as anybody is this time of year, right? And remember BYU got in last year with Kyle Collinsworth going out.
Got a 10.
That's major.
They got a 10 seed.
That's a major guy
blowing
hurt.
out his
right.
knee.
And so they're healthy going in with Kyle, with Tyler. You would think they'll look at their body work, and then their seed will be based on their whole body of work. I think they're going to be fine. And you want to know what? I think they have a chance to advance. And watching Gonzaga tonight, I think they can go deep. And the reason is that this is as balanced a Gonzaga team as I've seen. And I didn't think they played great the first couple of games in the tournament, but you know what? They were just getting to the finals. They really turned it on tonight. It was 6 guys in double figures. They can hit just so many different ways, but what I'm most impressed with is how good they play team defense. If you can play defense night in and night out, you win tournament games because you're not always going to shoot it well. And so I think both of those teams end up in the tournament from the WCC, and I think that we're going to see the conference well represented with BYU advancing and maybe Gonzaga going to an Elite 8.
And that's why that win in Spokane was so impressive, because Gonzaga is stinking good, man. And when BYU gets to the NCAA tournament, I think that we saw a glaring weakness, obviously, in post defense. But I don't think that a lot of teams have a Karnowski and Sabonis. So BYU, I think, has a good shot, no matter what the matchup, to compete and maybe win that game in the first round.
I'll tell you what, I'm watching Sabonis tonight when he comes off the bench. First of all, Karnowski is just a beast.
He's so big.
And if the officials just let him do whatever he wants, then who's going to stop him? Wisconsin's got a guy that can step up. Virginia's got a guy. But I'm talking about top 5 teams that have a guy, right?
Yeah.
Not very many teams have a guy that can stop him one-on-one. So you're going to have to double him. And the risk you take when you double Karnowski is, and that's why BYU didn't very much, is then they kick it out to Pangos and to Bell. And these guys can all knock down threes. Even their big guys can knock down threes, so you can't afford to double down or you get in trouble. And Wilcher is a great three-point shooter at 6'10" on the outside. And so if you go down and try to dig something out, then you try to recover to him. When you're closing out on him, that doesn't even matter. If you're not right up in his face, when you're closing out on him, he's so tall. He's just shooting a three right over top of you. He's a great three-point shooter. And so they have weapons on the outside that prevent you from doubling on the inside, and they're really good on the inside when they stay out of foul trouble. And Sabonis comes off the bench, and I'm watching this guy, and I'm thinking, how old is he? Because he's got a body that looks like he should be in the NBA right now.
He go on a mission.
235, 240. He's lean. He looks good. So I Google him up, and I'm like, how old is that kid? He's 18. He's 18?
His dad's Arvydas Sabonis, man. That guy was amazing.
Unbelievable. So they've got some talent, and I think that I wish they were a little deeper than they are, because I really think they're only Dranginis comes in off the bench and Sabonis comes in off the bench. Once they get past that, they don't have much. That to me is their only weakness this year.
About 9 deep.
Yeah.
I wish they were 0-30.
And at 8 and 9, you wish at 8 and 9 they're not quite as deep as some of the really, really elite teams in the country. So they're going to have to stay out of foul trouble, but they've got a great chance. And hey, there's no shame in losing to that team tonight the way they played.
Absolutely not.
Let's talk about that balance, Jeremy, and I'll let you continue in a second. But Pango, 16. Gary Bell Jr., 15. Karnowski, 12. Wilcher, 18. Dranginis, 10. Sabonis, 15. 6 guys in double figures.
People don't – I don't know if BYU fans know about Wilcher. I mean, this kid was a McDonald's All-American. He won the three-point shootout at the McDonald's All-American All-Star game. He goes to Kentucky. He's the 6th man at Kentucky on their national championship team and was the SEC 6th man of the year. Then he decided he didn't want to play 17 or 18 minutes a night on an elite #1 team. He wanted to be the man. And he also transformed his body during the offseason where he's more agile now. He's better out on the perimeter. So all of a sudden, this is a big-time NBA guy. And he continues to do what he did in this past year. He is going to be a big-time NBA player.
I rewind to last year and thinking out of this game, Kyle Collinsworth is hurt. We learned it was an ACL. Oh, devastating. And then the rematch with Oregon, and then it was tough. This BYU team, I am way more confident in going into an NCAA tournament game and their ability to match up and win that game. Because you have games like St. Mary's and Portland and at Gonzaga where you go, you know what? If BYU's hitting the three and plays a little defense, they can beat anybody.
They believe. They believe.
Yeah, and they look at this game.
Not Kentucky, but just about anybody.
Yeah, no, they're not going to. Maybe not Wisconsin, but those games come down the line, right? They're not going to be a 16 or a 15 seed.
Win one game in the tournament is the goal.
And then anything can happen. Then anything can happen after that if it's the right matchup, right? If BYU plays a perimeter-oriented team, they can play with anybody. It's about shooting the basketball, and when they're hitting it the way they were hitting it yesterday, they can play with anybody.
Look out.
So I like their chances, and I'm with you. Last year they're going to the tournament, I'm thinking, oh gosh, without Collinsworth, are they even going to stay in a ball game? I feel really good about them going to the tournament this year.